Hello guys, I'm in Uppsala, central Sweden. The city where Carl von Linnaeus, or Linnaeus, was active academically during a large part of his life and where I studied for 5 years, biology. In this video I'm going to bike around the city and see what species I can find. This church in the background is Uppsala Cathedral, the largest cathedral in Sweden. So this is the river Fyrisån, which flows right through the central of Uppsala. And along the walls of this river we have a plant, this one with yellow flowers. And this plant is not native to Sweden, it's probably spread from some garden around here. When I studied here in Uppsala, I started studying here like 8 years ago. They were still growing like they do now, so I reckon they've been here for quite a while. There's some plant with really big leaves here down by the riverside. I wonder what this is. On the hill up there is Uppsala Castle, and behind me is the river. And there's a lot of nice broadleaf trees along the river. Let's see if we can find any interesting lichens on them. I couldn't find any interesting lichens on the trees there, but I found this open space with gravel. Let's see if we can find some interesting ruderal plant species. Here we have Plantago lanceolata with these elongated collections of flowers and lanciform leaves. Some Lotus corniculatus, a legume. Plenty of species next to this maple here. This is Rumex acetosa. It seems like it's partly flowering, partly overflowered. Also a single flowering specimen of Leucanthemum vulgare, a typical species in many types of natural grasslands, but can also grow here in ruderal gravel. This large yellow plant growing over a lot of this gravel space here is Bunias orientalis, and it's classified as native but is a very problematic species because it's very good at spreading and outcompeting other plants. So we often treat this almost as an invasive species. We do not want this in our natural or semi-natural grasslands. It has kind of long lanciform leaves with these pointy lobes by the base. Down here there is a small plant of Viola arvensis. And just next to it, Arenaria serpilifolia, very small plant with white flowers with 5 whole petals. Characteristic species for gravel and sandy ground. Species of the family Caryophyllaceae have these opposite leaves along the stalk. This plant with the white flowers is in the family Apiaceae and is called Anthriscus sylvestris. And on it we have a crab spider called Misumena vatia waiting for its prey. This crab can change colors according to the flower it's sitting on. Right now it's a bit yellow, maybe not a perfect color, it should be a bit more white, I think. Anthriscus sylvestris has very characteristic leaves. You can easily recognize the plant even without flowers. Leaves are branched like this several times. A young forest of cherries. I don't think I will find much here. This is Aquilegia vulgaris, with pretty uniquely shaped flowers, varying from purple to white or pink. And this is classified as native in Sweden, and by native I mean it was actively brought into the country before the 1800s. That is our threshold for evaluating this in the national red list. It's least concern, and it's pretty common in gardens and parks and stuff, roadsides as well. Cool flower. And the leaves are pretty uniquely shaped. They have very soft edges, kind of cloud-like. I'm in the hospital garden now of central Uppsala, and the white building behind me is an old mental hospital. And there is a specific pincushion lichen I want to find on, I think it's an apple tree or something that grows somewhere in there. I just biked over a really cool plant here in the midst of flowering. Plantago media. We saw Plantago lanceolata earlier on the gravel. And this is a species in the same genus. This species has very hairy leaves and a bit wider leaves than other similar species in the genus Plantago. And look at this beautiful pinkish tint of the flowers. Very weird anatomy of this plant. Hello there. This little fellow just landed on my leg here, and I think these are called stink bugs in English. Smell really bad when you touch them. I haven't found the apple tree with the pincushion lichen quite yet, but on this ash there is a really beautiful specimen of Parmelina tiliacea. Here it is. This species is fairly common on older broadleaf trees in avenues, parks, graveyards, etc. in cities. At the base of the ash there is a legume called Vicia sepium. This one with the opposite leaves, kind of pear-shaped leaves. I found it, the apple tree, and this is not a wild apple tree, of course. This is some kind of planted variant. I think this one has these very small inedible apples, but apparently still have red-listed lichen on it. Here it is. You see these small pins sticking out of the bark with a somewhat red-brown or pale head and even more pale stalk. And this was reported as Sclerophora perunella, but I think that might have been a misidentification. I think this is Sclerophora pallida, which has a way more pale stalk than perunella, which has a red-brown stalk. It is very abundant on the bark of this apple tree. Pretty much the entire bark is covered in it. I actually just met the woman who reported Perunella here for the first time, and she agreed with me that it looks more like Pallida. She has learned a lot more during the years since she reported the lichen here the first time. She actually works in the hospital over there as an artist, and she also showed me this really large maple which also has this lichen on it. Let's see here. Yeah, here for example. See the little pins in the cracks of the bark everywhere. So I'm gonna take a small piece of the bark for identification and get back to her if we can determine this as Pallida instead of Perunella. So here we have this Sclerophora pincushion lichen in the microscope, and as you can see, the spores are almost globose and translucent, and they are a bit warty on the surface. I think they measure around 7 micrometers long. This in combination with the pretty pale pins would point towards Sclerophora pallida, so it is not Perunella. There has happened a lot since I was in this park the last time. There's some newly dug ponds here, for example. I was just about to leave, but there was some very cute ducklings over here. Some more ruderal species here on the gravel next to the pond. Here's a very large rush in the Cyperaceae family, and this is Cirpus sylvaticus, very characteristic with the large collections of flowers and very wide and thick leaves with a deep furrow in the middle. Very common, grows in various kinds of wet places, can grow in ditches, in trivial forest, as well as in really nice wetlands.